Good day to you. Today I want to cover a few things. So the first things we're going to cover is how to obtain QT. The next thing we want to be able to cover is how to install Qt 5.3.0 on Windows 10, and then finally we're going to cover the COS2614, the 2023 Assessment 1, Question 1. This question is mostly focused around QMessageBox and QInputBox, and so they're just testing your knowledge of whether you know how to use these. And so in 2023, Qt6 is the latest version, but I believe for this course module, we're only using the Qt version 5.3.0. So I'm going to only train on that. And so this is the link to get the version 6 documentation for the QMessageBox. This is for version 5 of the QMessageBox, and then this is for Qt version 4.8 in case anyone's still using the older versions. As you can see here, it also says that it's inherited from the QDialog, which requires the QMake setting of Qt plus widgets and requires the hashtag include QMessageBox. Alright, and then the next one is obviously the QInputBox, and so as mentioned here, you can find an example on page 34 of the textbook, and then these are the links for the QInputDialog box. So this is for the Qt6, the Qt5 and the Qt 4.8, and this is also inherited from the QDialog, and it requires a QMake setting of Qt plus equals widgets and requires the hashtag include Qt input box. Alright, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get our Qt. So obviously I've started up my computer. I've opened up my my favorite browser, and I've gone to osprey.unisa.ac.za/download/disk. And underneath there you'll see there's a folder called OSSR 2023. So I click on that folder, and inside here you'll see I've got Qt 2614, and there's a link to the software of Qt Creator. We click on that, and then you can see here we've got Qt-open source -Windows -x86 -mingw 482 _OpenGL 5.3.0. So this is the version that we should be using, and so I click on this link so that it starts downloading. You should see a little window popping up here on the right that shows the download. And yeah, as you can see, it's going to take about 2 minutes, so I will return once it's finished downloading. Okay, it's almost finished downloading. So the file size is 734 megabytes, so it is quite a large file. So those on capped internet, I would go to somebody with uncapped internet and get it. Okay, it is finished, and you can see here I can just click on this folder and it will open up in the downloads folder, as you can see here. So now I'm going to proceed to the second part of our video, which was to install the Qt application onto Windows 10. As you can see, I'll be presented with the Windows 10 wizard. So I'm just going to minimize this, and you can see here it's saying set up Qt 5.3.0. I'm going to choose next. It's asking me where do I want to install the Qt program, and so I'm going to leave it with the default, which is the C:\qt/Qt 5.3.0, and I'm just going to click on next. I'm actually going to select all of them so that it installs the full thing. It says it's going to take about 3 gigabytes of hard drive space. I'm happy with that. I'm going to leave it on the LGPL agreement. Okay, I'm going to say I have read the terms and conditions and I'm happy to proceed. Next. Here it's asking me, do I want to create a start menu item, and I'm happy to do that and leave it under the Qt 5.3.0. So I'll just click on next, and basically I'm going to proceed here and say install, and you can see the show details, and it'll basically show you as it's installing. Now I know from past experience this installation takes quite a while to run. So I am going to pause the video while it installs and wait until it gets to the end, and then I'll unpause and carry on with the recording. Okay. You might be presented with a window similar to this, and so I'm going to obviously choose yes. I'm happy for it to proceed. As you can see, it's starting to install. Okay, it is almost at the end. It's on its 99%. There we go. Got to our 100. Alright. So we just click on next. And I'm not going to worry about the README, but I'm happy for it to launch the Qt Creator. So we click on finish. I'm going to go to these other folders and just close them down now, because I no longer need them at the moment. Okay, you should be presented with a screen very similar to this. As you can see, there's been no usage on it. There's no open projects. And yeah, at the moment it's still loading, but as soon as it's finished, then we'll start creating our first project. Okay, so in order to create our first project, we click on new project, and then we'll bring up this window. I'm going to choose yeah, this is it. Other projects. I'm going to go to other projects, and I'm going to say an empty Qt project. Okay. I'm going to click on choose, and it's going to come up and ask me where do I want to store my files and the file name. So my natural location is I want to put it under C UNISA. So I haven't created the folder yet, so I'm going to create that. So my first step was to click on browse, on this browse icon. Then I found my local C drive, and then I'm going to create a new folder. Okay. And this new folder, I'm going to call it UNISA, and I'm happy to leave it all in small letters. Okay, like that. So then I'll double click on that, and then in this folder I'm going to create another one called COS2614. Okay, and then because I'm going to start assignment 1, I'm going to just make it assignment 1 folder. Okay, and I'll say select folder, and then it's the file name I'm going to give it is 2023 assignment 1. Okay, I'm going to go to next. I'm happy to leave it as this desktop min.gw. Okay, click on next. I'm not going to add any version control to this, so I'm just going to click on finish over here. Okay, so as you can see, it's created me a blank Q profile. So you have to basically go and add all the elements that you want your Q profile to add. So as a another option is if you go to new file and you choose applications, and we say we want a Qt widget application. Okay, let's just go to choose, and I'm going to just change the folders and all of that to the same here. I'm just giving it a different name, but it's still the same. It's just called assignment 1. Okay, and I'm actually going to tell it that I want to use that as the default. Click on next, and over here you'll see it's asking for a class name. So I'm going to change this from a Q main window to a Q dialog. Okay, and the class name I'm going to give it is question 1. Okay, and so I don't want it to create a form because we're going to create a form manually. I actually don't need it to create me any header or CPP files, but because it doesn't give me an option to not create them, I'm just going to leave it as it is. Click on next. I don't want any version control, so I'm just going to click on finish. And now you'll see there's 2 project options here. This is the CPP main file, and this is the header file. So if you just right click on it and say I want to remove this file, okay, you can say yes, I want to delete it permanently. I don't want any header file, and I also don't want this one, so I'm going to say remove file, delete, and permanent. Okay, I'm just going to say close all. Okay, and on this one here I'm going to actually close this project, so I'm going to say close project, and then when I come here you'll see it's given me what I need for my Qt application to run. And because I know that it's a GUI application, because they're asking a QMessageBox and a QInputBox, this has already got, you can see at the top here, Qt plus equals core GUI, and then the greater than version 4, and it says Qt plus equals widgets. And so I leave the target name and everything the same. And on the main, you can see this is the standard main that comes in. Because I removed the header file, it still calls it here, but I'm going to comment it out like that. Okay, so now it's got an include of Q application, which we need to run our application, and then it's got the thing called question 1, and it's got question 1, and it creates an object w, and then you've got w.show, and then it says return a.exec. Okay, so I find that sometimes the return a.exec gives you a problem, so you can generally change that to return 0 as well, but I'm going to leave it as it is for now. And if you want to, you can just run this debug, and it'll ask you, do you want to save? So you say yes, I want to save all the files, and it should just basically open up a blank window that's got question 1 possibly written in the corner, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so it's already giving us an error. Question 1w and before w. Those all look correct, so I don't see why it's not working. So what I'm going to do is I will right click on this, and there's normally a run, yeah, there we go. This, I'm going to do a clean. I'm going to say run clean. Okay, you can see there it cleans it. Okay, And after that's finished, then I go run, I right click on here and I say run QMake. And then I'm going to actually just start it without debugging, and let's see. No, still giving us a problem. Sometimes I act silly. Reason why it's not working is because there is no question 1. We took the header and the CPP out, and so we can just remove these two, because it won't show anything without we basically got an app, and then we're saying there's nothing to run in our app, and then close. Okay, so now for the actual question. Let's go and have a look here. So this is for COS2614, Assessment 1, Question 1. Write a Qt Graphical User Interface GUI program to generate a username and an initial password given the full name of the user. Given below are the rules for generating a valid username. It consists of 5 characters, where the first character is in uppercase and the rest of the 4 characters are in smaller case. The username is created by combining the first 4 characters of the surname with the first character of the first name. If the username does not have 4 characters, if the surname does not have 4 characters, more characters are taken from the first name to make up the username. If the username and the first name combined is less than 5 characters, then append sufficient number of zeros to create the username. An initial password is generated by combining randomly selected 5 characters from the full name of the user. Note that no spaces are allowed in the username or password. User input should be obtained using a QInputDialog. You can expect the full name as a single string where each word is separated using a space. For example, Mike William Owen. The output, username and password, should be displayed using a QMessageBox. You need not do any verification of the user input. Okay, so firstly I'm going to start off with creating a simple program showing a QMessageBox and a QInputBox. Alright, so in order for that, I'm going to create variables called QString. So I'm just going to enlarge my screen here so you can see what I'm typing. Okay, and remember what I was telling you, that we need to have an include, and that include is of the I think it was the QDialog, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, so if you have a look, QMessageBox class over here is part of QDialog, and if you want to use it, you can either individually use hashtag include QMessageBox, and then in the same for the QInputBox, we could use the hashtag include QInputDialog. Okay, but since these are also from Qt widgets, there's a class that allows us to import both of these without using individual headers. Okay, and that class is called Qt widgets. So we're going to go ahead over here and we're going to include Qt widgets. Okay, and then over here I'm going to create a QString because Qt uses QString as its main string class. Okay, and what I want to do is I want to have the full name of the person declared here. Okay, and then we want to create another string of a username. Okay, and then we want to create another string of the password. So I'm gonna just call it user pass like this. Okay, and so I've declared 3 string variables. Okay, and the one is the full name, the second one is the username, and the third one is the user password. Alright, and then from here I'm going to just create a simple input, an input and a message box. Okay, so I declare first, I'm going to say QString, okay, because I wanted to return it, and I want to return the full name. Okay, and so I'm going to say I want to get this name from the QInputDialog. Alright, and as you can see, what it's doing is it says you got 2 options for QInputDialog. You've got your Q widgets, the what's that thing? Okay, anyway, parent equals 0, and the window flags equals 0. So if you drop the second one down, why didn't it want to click on that second one? I wanted to show you the more options. It doesn't want to show. Anyway, so the way that we represent it is we also need to use the get text over here. Yeah, since we want a string, I want to use the get text method of the QInputDialog. Okay, so I say get text, and then the parent I'm going to put as 0. Alright, and then what we can do is we can give our a title. You can see there, so it's now switched to the second one as our const QString and the title, and so I'm going to call this full name. Okay, because this is what the user will see. And then it's asking for a label. Okay, and that label I'm going to ask to enter full name. Enter your full name. Okay, so that's that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to display this full name. I'm going to pretend this full name is going to become the username, and I'm going to just specify a manual pass just for now. Okay, but we will tackle this the correct code later. I'm just busy showing you a simple example. Okay, so I'm going to say the username, we're going to equals username equals, and then we're going to say full name. Okay, and then for the user pass, I'm going to assign it a password 123. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to display this information in the QMessageBox. Okay, so let's go and do QMessageBox. Okay, and this QMessageBox is an information message box. So we're going to just add information. Okay, and then on this information we're also going to use our parent, this parent, which is the 0 option, and we're going to say user account details as the title, and then on the output we're going to output Q string, and we're going to say for the user. Okay, for the user, and %1, because %1 is like a placeholder for our arguments. Okay, so we can add multiple arguments, and so what we're going to do is we're adding our first argument, and then we're going to continue adding more arguments. So I'm pushing \n for a new line so that it goes on to the next line, and then I'm saying the username, and I'm saying my second argument, %2. Okay, and then \n, and we want the password, so it's user, or actually, yeah, we're typing here password, and then we want %3 because that's our third argument. Okay, and then over here we assign our argument, so we push arg, and then over here we're going to use this full name. So I'm just going to say full name. I think I used full name like that. Okay. Okay, and then for each argument, we just push .arg. So let me just get there. Okay, yeah. So here we've got our next argument, .arg, and we're typing out our username. Okay, and then our third argument is our user pass. Okay, so this should basically show us a screen with the passwords, with the details that are presented here. Okay, so we've got full name, we've got our username, which equals the full name, and then our user pass, which is password 123. So basically we should see an input box that asks us to enter our full name, and then we should see the username being assigned the full name, and the password as password 123. So now all we do is we say start debug. Okay, we definitely want to save all. Okay, so as you can see, it's already complaining because I've already declared QString of full name, so I don't need to redeclare it. So I need to just take this QString out and just leave it as full name over here. Okay, and then what also it's identified is that I forgot to add the semicolon to the end of this QMessageBox. So you've got to have that semicolon there like that. And so let me try and rerun it and see if it'll run. Okay, there we go. As you can see, it's saying to enter our full name. So I'm going to enter the name of who they've given us. I'm just going to enter Mark because I haven't done any of the other codes. So I'm just going to say Mark there for now. Oops. Mark. And you can see there it's saying full name on the title. And then it's got enter your full name here. And you say OK. And there we go. It says for the user Mark, the username is Mark, and the password is password 123. So this is the basics of how to use the Q input box and the Q message box. So with this little bit of information, you've already got most of the stuff done. And so now you read through the question and you decipher, how do I want to implement all the requirements that they've got here. So over here it says it consists of 5 characters, where the first character is in uppercase and the rest of the 4 characters are in smaller case. So how do you deal with uppercase and lowercase letters? So the way you do that is, you know that you're going to get the first characters from the first name, okay, because it said here the username is created by combining the first 4 characters of the surname, okay, with the first character of the first name. So we actually need the surname one to be the first character to be the uppercase one, and then the rest of them must be lowercase. So we've got to figure out, how do we do that? How would we create an uppercase and a lowercase option? Okay, and then also you can see if the surname does not have 4 characters, more characters are taken from the first name to make up the username. And then if the surname and the first name combined is less than 5 characters, then append sufficient number of zeros to create the username. So just think about it. How would you do that? And so like I say, I'm going to work through the code now, and I'm going to provide the solution to how I solved this. So my first step is to actually create a function, and that's what's going to it's going to accept two input characters of type string, and it's going to also generate the output. So I'm going to call this my function to generate the username. Okay, and my function is going to be of a type QString. Okay, and I'm going to call my function generate username. Okay, and this function is going to take 2 inputs of type QString. Okay, the first one is going to be the f name, okay, which is the first name, and then the next QString is going to be the last name. Okay, so L name. Alright, like that. Okay, and my function is going to be declared, and then I'm going to create another QString variable inside here, and I'm going to call it uname. Alright, and I'm going to say if the name, okay, if the last name, L name, size, I'm going to use the size, okay, is greater than or equal to 4, alright, then I want it to use the last name and resize it to a size of 4, okay, and I want to use the first name, and I want to resize that to size 1 because I want to grab 1 character. Okay, and then I'm going to tell it the username must add the last name, which comes first, and it must add the username, the first name. So uname plus equals and the first name. So now it's added those 2 variables together. Okay, and what happens if it's not? Remember what they said, there was 3 case scenarios. So if it's not, then we're going to use an else statement, and we're going to say username is going to be our last name. Okay, and we're going to use an int characters of 4 minus the lname dot size. Okay, and once we've got how many characters that is, I'm now going to create an if statement that's going to check if the first name has a size, okay, whoops, okay, we're going to say if the first name dot size, okay, is greater than or equal to characters plus 1, then it can use the first name resize of the characters to characters plus 1. Okay, and we'll append this to the username. Okay. Else we need to get, else we need to get the username plus the first name character, okay, and then we have to append the zeros. 5 times the uname dot size, okay, and then append it with zeros. Okay, so that's that one. So that solves our query of how to get the username fulfilled with the different requirements that they've stipulated. Then the next one we can do is create a QString, okay, and this is going to be to cover our character, our first character. So we're going to create a QString of first character, and we're going to say this is our QString, and we're going to call the username, and we're going to call it at the letter 0, which is the very first one, okay, and we want that one to be our uppercase, to upper, alright, to upper, okay, and then we're going to call the replace function, say uname dot replace, and we're going to replace the first character with our character that we've specified, okay, so from 0 to 1, taking that, and then we're going to return this variable, return the uname variable, okay. Then that solves that first one, and what we're going to do is create another function, and this is going to be to generate our password, okay, and this one is only going to take one string, so we're going to have Q string, and we're going to say generate password as our function name, and our input is going to be Q string full name, okay. Then we're going to have a variable called password, QString password, okay, and we're going to say for int I equals 0, I less than 5, which is what our password was, requirements, I plus plus. So we basically created our for loop. Okay, and we're going to say int j equals, and we're using a new unique function called QRand. Okay, so that is our random. Okay, and we're going to use a percentage, and this is going to be against the full name. So full name dot size and plus 0. Okay, and then we're going to say our password is going to be the full name at the random character that we've been presented with. Okay, and then we want to return our password. Okay, so now that solves a lot of the username and the password requirements that were stipulated in this exercise. Now that we have most of that declared, let's move back to our main function over here, and we're going to add some more strings. So the first one we're going to add, we've got full name, we've got our username, and we've got our user pass. So I'm going to change user pass to password. Okay, all small letters. Okay, and I want to add first name, and I want to add last name. Okay, and these are all types of Q string. Okay, and then over here where I've got the full name, this one over here, I'm going to change this, and it's going to be Q string. Okay, I still want a Q string, but instead of using full name, I'm going to use user information. Okay, user information. I'm still getting the text, and instead of full name, I'm going to just say user details. Okay, I'm going to modify this other string of mine, and I'm just going to put here enter your full name, and we're going to say here first name, middle name, and I'm just going to put surname. Okay, alright, then we've got that, and then we're going to pass this to a Q string list. Okay, and we're going to create a Q string list called user info. Okay, and we're going to say our user information that we've retrieved, user information dot split. Okay, and we're using a Q regex, and we want to basically take away any spaces. We want to skip the empty. Q string skip. Where's my cursor gone now? Q string skip empty parts. That's what we want. And then don't forget to add our semicolon on the end. Okay, and then we're going to use an if statement, and we're going to say if our user info dot size is greater than or equal to 2, then we go and say our first name equals user info 0, okay, and we're going to pass it to lower. Okay, so that will convert all the first name characters to lowercase. Okay, last name will equal user info, and we want user info dot size and -1, user info size 1, there we go, dot to lower. Okay, and then we're gonna merge it. Full name now equals user info dot join, and make sure there's no spaces. Okay, then we're going to call our generate username function. So we're going to say username equals generate username, and we're passing our two variables, which is our first name and our last name. Okay, and then we're going to use a QSRand function and use QTime, current time, and we're going to convert that into milliseconds. Okay, and then we're going to call our password. So password equals generate password, and we only need to pass the one variable, and that's going to be our full name. Okay, and then we're going to have our QMessageBox display that information that we had. And so I'm going to take these other variables and comment them out because we don't need them, and then I must just remember to update that last piece there. Control okay, so we've got a thing, and this is password over here. Password. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Looks good. And outside our if, what happens to our else? We're going to return to the user another QMessageBox. QMessageBox, another information one. Okay, and we're going to still use our parent of 0, and we're going to say insufficient input. You should enter at least the first and last names. Okay, and that now concludes our full program. So if we go and we run it, and we run it on their sample data that they've given us, which I believe is Mark William Owen. Let's try that out. Oh, I've got some debugs, some bugs over here. Oh, forgot my semicolon over here. Okay. Q string list. Oh, the other thing is we've got to add some more includes here. So the two that we're going to add in here is the global, Qt global, hashtag include Qt global, and the other hashtag include is going to be QTime. Okay, so let's see if that user information, I've gone and misspelt it. Let's double Q string list user info, and then we've got this user information. Okay, so maybe that's where the two bugs are. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. And so let me just recheck that. Mark William Owen. Okay, so let's try that. Mark William Owen. Go OK. There we go. For the user, Mark William Owen. That's his username and that's his password. And there you have it. Okay, thank you for watching this video. I hope that it's been helpful and informative and that you've learned something from it, especially the QInputBox and QMessageBox. As mentioned, the links are here, and so this documentation gives you a whole lot of information, and you'll find that get text is it describes it over here in the with regards to things, and you see here Q string, so it gives you the information. Like this Q input box, I think we use the get string function. There we go, and we're looking for get string. So you see you got your getters and your setters, which is quite nice in here. There's our get. Okay, get text. And then they actually give you an example of it. And you see here, instead of using QLine normal, you can change it. So this is why it's quite interesting to come and read the documents, because you can do different things with a QInputDialog. You don't just get it as a text box, whereas this QLine edit is basically accepted that it's a text box. So I would definitely recommend reading the online documentation for it. As I say, I hope this has been helpful. Thank you for watching. All the best with COS2614. Thank you and goodbye.